here and then answer this sequence. So 87312, they have to solve it. If using insertion, what will be the steps this algo will sort it? How about selection? How about bubble? How about merge? How about the other 4 algorithms? Then, if you're given a new sequence, how would it be? So the students did it. The next time when we meet, we did another activity. I asked them first, okay, thank you very much, class, for you to fill in the template that I've given you. The first activity that we will do is for you to identify the criteria of each of the algorithms. So the students started by highlighting all these criteria. By now, they actually understand better because this is a repeat activity. But what is different this time, because I use specific examples, then the student understand better. And because of this example, that is the students now can compare by each of these technique, what will be the difference. And most importantly, I ask them to fill in their observations. Look at this. These are their own words. Point is, by using ChatGPT, we have to always ask them to write their reflection and write their observation. And based on what they have written, because of this size is not really friendly when we put up on the screen, because I still have projector in the class, I extracted and put it like this. So now the students said they understand better. They like this activity. Now they understand. Actually, by using ChatGPT, well, again, they can copy paste, but actually doesn't ensure them to understand. After that, I push them further. Okay, I say, good that you say that. Just now you have extracted the criteria, right? Now, tell me again, what are the criteria? So, we built together this criteria on the first column. The students identify themselves. The criteria is based on a number of iteration, by number of divide, number of swap. And we did this because we discussed at the whole class level. Before this, they did it in pairs. They had to present, but the whole class did not discuss together. So my point is that because we have ChatGPT now, the way that we need to change, we need to observe them. We need to help them design a template like this and then ask them to fill it in. From this, when I ask them any questions, they can answer because they understand. And I tested them further. Now I give you new sequence. You go to the front and tell me and derive how to solve it. You know, I almost cried when I heard my student say, Doctor, now I understand. When we are coming up with the algo, actually, we can design our own algo. It doesn't matter when we want to sort, we start from the first element or the last element. But the point is that in each algo, there should be initialization and we have to have operators to swap and all. The students really internalize. And this is where I know that the students have able to learn this. So I put this up on the slide, tell them. So now, do you realize what we have learned? I also learned together with you, students. Now, do you realize that you understand the characteristics of these algorithms? You also learn your way of studying. You learn how to develop a goal. You learn that each of them have different steps and you identify the basic criteria. So you have some homework still. Why the time complexity is different. My point is that, coming back to my slides. My point is that, my observation. So this is the practical tips. What we need to do. We need to observe their learning behavior. We need to understand their learning pattern. We can provide template. It is our job to help them. Students are clearer on my expectations. So that means I learn also how would the students translate what I want them to achieve based on this learning outcome. Now that I understand the students better, I can identify who needs help. After they have completed the answer, they identify the characteristics. So now I know and they understand what is the boundary of the copy pasting. Now they know they need to put pure effort to learn. And now I am sure collaborative and experiential learning has enabled everyone in the class to be able to identify deep understanding. And this is actually beyond existing literature, because none of existing materials available have done what we have done together in the class. Isn't this pure and authentic learning? So I know every time I need to listen to their reflection, I need to motivate them further. I remember myself when the students able to answer, I said yes 5 times because I was too happy. So this is when we need to stay human. Don't let the robot to replace it. So important notes, we need to emphasize our role as learning coaches. Students need to be taught how to learn in this ChatGPT. Instead of us considering and assuming they have learned, maybe they actually copy pasted. So we as lecturer need to also unlearn and relearn because maybe ChatGPT can come up with better instructions compared to us. So what is our role? We should become better mentor, guide them, monitor them. And we need to also be ready for agile teaching strategies. When we need to scaffold, what we need to redesign, we have to focus on higher order thinking. The question earlier that I used was problem-based learning and the Socratic mindset. The way for the students to keep on inquiry-based learning we need to teach them how to be responsible learners. We need to be a role model to them. So some practical tips. You may see that I extracted this from the UPM's guide for teaching and learning. So you know that we need to let students to use ChatGPT. Ensure that the students understand. Engage with the student and conduct collaborative activities. If we look at some terms, you can consider also doing this jigsaw activity where, for example, you assign different groups, especially if you have large classes, you assign different groups to do different things. I did that also if you noticed previously. And you need to create a space where the students can join things together again because this is a jigsaw, remember? And we can also conduct this World Cafe where the students can be active in the class, moving from one place to another, trying to discuss several topics while they learn. So make this active learning. Allow them to use ChatGPT. Other methods that we can use: do storytelling, do nonlinear presentation. As nonlinear presentation means ask them to suggest and come up with anything. Suggest anything, discuss anything, discuss anything. We can also use tools like the Mentimeter or Kahoot or quizzes to do polls and surveys and quizzes. And you can have games in class or at least short it to the traditional discussions and group breakout session to let students to learn from each other, to share insight and have opportunity to ask questions. So those are similar to here. So I'll skip this one. And now we are ready for redesigning assessments. Due to time, allow me to proceed. Yeah. Okay. So now that we have looked at the activities, how ChatGPT can be useful to redesign activity. This is actually more to remind us It's actually the technology who can be empowered to become facilitator for learning. But the educators leading this teaching and learning process, we need to play a crucial role to redesign the engaging learning experience and to have a synergetic collaboration between multiple entities. This means the learner, the educator slash instructor, the information and the technology. And this is essential to ensure the learner's augmented intelligence. Maybe you will argue, what about cheating, honesty, truthfulness? How about the data recency? Is there fake information? How about the privacy of data? How about misleading potentials and manipulation potentials? Somebody shared just now about redefining plagiarism. Indeed, it's time to rethink about plagiarism and cheating. This slide tells about the bot created to student created. Which of these can you consider cheating? If you look at this, student plug prompt into the AI, copied the response and submit it to the teacher. This is bot created. Is this cheating? The AI created a response. Student read, edit, adjust and submit. Or could be the student created multiple AI responses, use the best parts, edit and submit. Or could be the student wrote the main ideas, the AI generated a draft and offered feedback to improve. Or can be the student consulted the internet or AI for ideas, wrote and submitted. Remember, previously, before we had the ChatGPT, the students still consulted the internet and various amount of information. How would we know at that time the students didn't actually just copy pasted or use another paraphrasing tool like Quillbot or Grammarly or paraphrasing online to refine? Those are actually tools only. How about when the student wrote all assignment contents without consulting AI or the internet? This, of course, purely student created. But what if we have students who can write all the assignment content with his or himself's effort and leverage on this technology to refine the writing and make the writing better, while in the process also learning to produce something better? So how do we facilitate and make this happen? If you're familiar with Wolfram Alpha, where the Wolfram Alpha is one of the most famous apps that is used in teaching and learning. This Wolfram Alpha is very intelligent, and this was 6 years ago, and it is able to complete the calculus homework. Is this considered cheating? So my point is that people have discussed about this academic integrity issue for so long. So the response that can be emerged from this could be whether to ban it, whether to go business as usual, or whether to embrace it. So we must pick an immediate, can be cost level or micro picture, and future needs response could be the macro picture. But remember, these students need the technology for their future. This is from a slide I borrowed this slide from my peer speaker from UKM when I gave a talk to UKM previously. So Cik Wan Muhammad Imran highlighted that we need to balance the risk for cheating versus opportunities for feedback. How do we develop meaningful and relevant assessments? Aren't these more important than investing in student surveillance? How can we reward our students for their effort or outcome? Are we indirectly incentivizing cheating? So the point is that we should not deprive our students from learning the values and skills. They need to be able to be an individual who understand what integrity means. We need to be able to allow them to make mistakes and receive feedback iteratively, and set up a productive struggle. So this productive struggle, as explained in my previous example, hopefully can inspire you. Look at this. People may be concerned, can ChatGPT substitute educators? How about when the student submit the draft to the ChatGPT and then ChatGPT generates some response to it and the students utilize that feedback, and after that, at the same time, when the student after the student submit the work to the instructor this time use ChatGPT to get feedback and to score based on the rubric. So this is where we would see that ChatGPT is immersed in teaching and learning. So what do we need to do? Some practical tips. We need to come out with unique case study. So for example, you can implement passion-based learning. Ask the students to write on something specific area that he or she likes and elaborate, and can use AI to their advantage. You can also use AI to generate or tailor a special case study. And always ask the students to give their opinions and justification. Ask them to give feedback on how whatever that is being generated can be improved. If it fits, how to organize it, how to communicate it effectively. And it's also important for us to consider different type of assessment with personal opinion, with reasoning and justification, with current issues. Maybe we can emphasize more on live demonstration and as oral evaluation, or maybe doing interview to them. So some guide, review your assessment, avoid straightforward questions or simple facts. We need to ask current, complex, open, real-world problem based on contextual topic or issues. You can also incorporate ChatGPT to personalize or draft a unique case study. Ask the students to critique for improvements, whatever that's being generated, and to discuss with their friends what their friends got differently. Because ChatGPT sometimes will generate differently based on the variations of prompts. It can also generate something different even with the same prompt. So we can try to use different assessment types which are more immune. So it is our job to make it immune to AI, and ask the students to come up with figurative related, some oral assessment and live demonstration. And we can use ChatGPT to draft quiz questions and possible answers. And you can ask it to generate graph rubric that you can then refine. But I would suggest if you take action number 5, make sure that this process is in a setting where students doesn't use technology. In this slide, I wish to show that how ChatGPT can actually give wrong answer because some of its logic in its coding is not correct. If you see on the left, both answers are actually correct and ChatGPT got it correct. But on the right, I see that ChatGPT got wrong answer. I don't know why. But the point is that this means that I can use this kind of question asked to my students. Because if the student really understand, the student knows that for B, actually it's wrong. So if they only copy paste this to ChatGPT, then that means they would get it wrong. So the students need to understand deeply about the concept. ChatGPT also can be tricked. Maybe you have seen this somewhere before. When you because sometimes it takes this process as the learning process. So when you emphasize saying that 2 plus 5 is 8, it will agree to you. This one I took from one of the sharing on ChatGPT organized by UMT by Dr. Shamsul, and where in his slides he mentions that we can use advanced question design techniques, create questions that are more relevant and engaging for students, and explain how ChatGPT can be used to generate questions based on these advanced techniques. Many people might be also interested on how to detect ChatGPT. I have listed 4 applications here, but based on my observations, when I put up this write-up that is generated by ChatGPT, there is no conclusive answer. Although, well, you can say 2 out of 3 says it is by ChatGPT, but I would argue that it's really important for us to polish around whether it is written by ChatGPT or not, because I would suggest that we need to look at the core content rather than worrying about the writing style, unless you're from language department and it's very important for you to look at the language. So guys, how to make sure we have safe and responsible AI? These are the questions that we need to consider. How can AI be leveraged to enhance education? How to best exploit it for common good in education? How to ensure ethical, inclusive, and equitable use? How to prepare humans to live and work with AI? So it's partly our job. So besides telling the lecturers to do something, we need to suggest to our students. The facts by ChatGPT cannot be taken as is, and students need to question every piece of text that they got from AI, because there is possibility of inaccurate information, as I showed earlier in the example of questions on supervised learning. And because we need to assume there'll be more and more AI tools being developed. And even in the MQA advisory note also have said that the students need to be informed about the importance of generative AI to support teaching and learning, but not replacing their tasks as a learner. Therefore, it's important for AI to be used responsibly, and the information that is generated must be evaluated to know that it is correct. More suggestions to students. Is AI needed or not for this task? Can we check its security? You must check its security. You must make it honest which part do you take from ChatGPT, and you need to give credit where it is due. And you can read further here. I will put it in the chat afterwards. And this is from Dr. Muhammad Imran, to tell that grades may not reflect student mastery because ChatGPT can short circuit this student effort now. So what we need to redesign is this productive struggle. So how would the students do productive struggle? That means the quality of the question, the instruction that we give to them will allow them to struggle productively, not easily to copy paste from the ChatGPT. And GPT-4 is now available, and it tells that for every of its creativity, visual input, and longer context ability, now it is improved. So imagine, it will only get better. The UNESCO has informed that the world's citizen needs to understand what the impact of AI might be, what it can and cannot do, when it is useful, when it must be questioned, how it can be steered for the public good. And to be able to do this, therefore, everybody needs to have some competency with AI, through language, through knowledge, understanding, skills, and value orientation. And this is called AI literacy, which covers the data literacy and the algorithm literacy. So we understand how the AI algorithms find the patterns. So one way to do this is for an educator to use and check with the ChatGPT from time to time. The UNESCO has also released the AI and education guidance for policymakers. But if you go through all these 8, it is actually to emphasize the values of human-based AI, to highlight that AI should be human controlled, should be unethical, should be in an ethical, non-discriminatory, equitable, transparent, and auditable manner, and should have values that prioritize people, should foster broad corporate and civic responsibility when you are releasing AI technology, and to ensure, number 8 is very important, that people remain at the core of education as an implicit part of the technology design, and to protect against automating tasks without identifying and compensating for the values of current practices. Even Malaysia has also released its roadmap regarding the principles for responsible AI, covering fairness, reliability, safety and control, privacy and security, inclusiveness, transparency, accountability, and pursuit of human benefit and happiness. So to conclude, some takeaway message. Let us not ban ChatGPT, please, because this is like shutting down the students from the need to prepare themselves for this future skill. The emerging competencies would be resourcefulness, how to leverage tools, how to prompt, how to find information, how to reference information, how to manage information responsibly. Our role is more important now. We need to ensure the students are prepared for their unforeseen future. Because for educators, when you touch a life, you touch the life forever. So the students need to be resilient. So please consider to use GetMe's 9 events of instructions. Make sure that from gaining attention towards enhancing retention and transfer, we can consider to use technology to a good advantage. And we need to be able to be agile and redesign from time to time. I summarize lastly with 3 positive effects from ChatGPT disruption and the university's role to produce quality students. First, now it is more important than ever. It's very pertinent that we focus to produce students who are able to communicate clearly, coherently, and confidently, and not just to let them to hide behind the lengthy reports, which we cannot even ensure that they are the person who have written it, and let them to truly think how to condense and articulate what they have written in that report in a dialogue that can evolve their thoughts. Please create this activity in your class. Second advice, emphasize on the experiential learning. Switch to live problems that can be evolved and stop feeding students problems from the past. Let learning happen in real time. Provide the students with hands-on experiential learning opportunities, and assessments should be increasingly based on creation, like producing practical artifacts. And the third one, you might consider assessing the quality of the process besides only the output. So allow the students to work together, because you need to also ensure that they don't merely form groups and split the work. They need to be able to interact with each other. Are they able to collaborate effectively? Are they ready for professionalism? So as we shift to a more dialogue-based approach to learning, isn't this what the university should be about? To produce thinkers, scholars. So our students will be of high quality rather than simply the outcome. I end with this quote: if we teach today's students as we taught them yesterday, we rob them of tomorrow. That's all from me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Associate Professor Dr. Fadhlina, for the very informative, insightful, inspiring sharing just now about ChatGPT, and also thank you so much for sharing with us your real experience in classroom, how you integrate ChatGPT in teaching and learning process. So what I can say is that I believe transparency between the lecturers and students is very important, because I also totally agree with you. By banning ChatGPT is a futile effort, I believe, because by being transparent with the students, we encourage honesty with the students. So we can say that we can tell the student that they can use ChatGPT. However, we are going to guide them. So we are basically the teaching process are going to be more guided. And then I believe the role of lecturers nowadays has becoming more towards facilitators. I heard this years ago that, you know, lecturers not supposed to teach, but the role is actually to facilitate the teaching and learning process. So with this development in generative artificial intelligence, the role of being a facilitator in classroom is becoming very, very important. And by incorporating artificial intelligence such as ChatGPT, and then I also read some comments here, Mid-Journey, you know, to generate image, we'll be able to ensure the students have the ability to research, to polish their critical thinking, to manage their information skill, and also most importantly, how to collaborate with each other. So I don't know, we actually have 1 minute before we end the session. The secretary has shared the attendance list on the chat section. So please fill in the attendance list, and then please also rate the program that we have today, how it benefits you. I hope it is benefit as it benefits me. So, and then from the email, we're going to share with you all the materials, the recording, and also the slides from Dr. Fadhlina. And I don't know if maybe we can have one question last before we end the session, because I believe maybe there are some burning question before we end. Anybody would like to? Yes, please.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. Can I ask? I think it's not like a question, just to add a little bit. Maybe we can share with others. Thank you for Doctor for fruitful informations that we believe that we cannot run away of this new technology. But the thing is that because I'm from the social science to the lecturers, and I look this thing is different in terms of how we are going to assess student in futures. But when we look into today's, what we understand that information is not exclusive. Everybody can gain knowledge, and ChatGPT is proof that is even more. Actually, we are doing the same thing, looking a lot of information than what we need. But the ChatGPT, it could be a summarize of the information that this is what you need to look into. So I think it's a more advanced that the way we learn actually is quite different at this time of time. At this time. But from my point of view, I think if we look back to what we already assessed to them previously, is in social science, we are more concerned about their final exam. Maybe we can increase percentage of final exam to be tested, so that they can learn, they can be assessed accordingly in terms of their understanding of those things. Because social science is quite different with the technical students or science students. They will need to have technical skills or experimental skill in order for them to prove their competence enough of their study. But the social science is more towards of gain understanding. That's why if you look into the social science student and management students, more and more what they are testing is they look into like professional qualifications. 100% is based on exam, because this is how they want them to gain understandings. Because I look, the thing is that because I'm studying a professional as well as academic qualification, so I know the gap. Because the professional is being demanded is a proven that you have that skill and competency at that level by using the certain professional qualification. So maybe moving forward, that's why in my teaching, in my assessment, I will concentrate much on my tests, final tests, midterm tests, and those things. So there is a very less in terms of people gain marks for the assignment of this thing. But the way is that I will, even the assignment also, I will look into that, how they can present assignments and the output and all those things. So this is might be a way of assessment need to be done. And I don't think the ChatGPT is, if we are follow like what doctors say and all those things, I think it's not threat for us that we can make friend with the ChatGPT in futures. Okay, thank you. Maybe, thank you, doctor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ridwan. Can I respond to you? I can share that what happened in UPM, and also based on my interactions with other friends from other universities, our immediate response is to focus towards the traditional exam, meaning cutting off from this technology, asking the students to go to final exam. But remember, whether the final exam is really suitable for the domain depends only on the subject matter expert can be sure about this. But what I want to emphasize is that at least during the learning process, before the formative assessment takes place, make sure that the students have been exposed and give them opportunity to learn as much as they can, because while they're at the university, it is the time for them to grow. When they go out, then they'll compete, so at least allow them to prepare themselves with the skills to be resourceful. So hopefully this can be considered in terms of the assessment. Besides only written exam, again, we can consider also verbal exam, having so because when the students go to work, not all of them will be assigned tasks that require them to write. The most crucial is how they can communicate and collaborate with each other. So consider this as well. So the students will build better human skill, better soft skill, which nowadays the university are being complained of not preparing this enough for the students, as much as we have extracurricular activities and all. But at the university, mostly we only look at the cognitive percentage. So hopefully we can consider this as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much,
Thank you,
Doctor,
Doctor.
for the response. Okay, so before we end, I would like to ask for your guys' favor, if you can turn on your camera. I would like to see the beautiful and handsome faces so that we can have take a picture with you, group photos with everybody before we end the session. So I would like to ask the secretariat to take the picture. Okay, secretariat, if you are ready.
Okay, we count to 3. 1, 2, 3. First page. Next, second page.
Dr. Najmi, Dr. Anis.
Third page. Fourth page.